My own experience with Fair 25 years now, as a donor and food contributor at first. When I taught high school in Oakville, it became second nature to run a Thanksgiving and Easter food drive. St. Thomas Aquinas became the laundry soap collectors, and our classrooms smelled especially fresh 2 times a year. I would challenge my homeroom to bring in cash donations and match them myself. Ron Ziegler was the longstanding president in those days, and he taught me so much about the importance of fair share in our community. Others in the Walton community have been longtime volunteers there, especially Nancy and Peter Hanksman. I'm happy to be able to introduce Fair Share's current president, Stephen Rowe. He started volunteering for Fair Share in 2014 after a long career in the trucking industry, then as an owner of a freight brokerage and warehouse distribution company until his retirement in 2004. He has been married for 53 years and has 2 children and 2 grandchildren, who I'm sure keep him busy when he is not golfing or taking long walks or at Fair Share. He even completed the Camino de Santiago in 2010. He brings a great deal of business experience to his role with Fair Share, and we look forward to hearing more about Fair Share Food Bank and its role in Oakville. Welcome, Stephen.
Thank you. I'd like to start by thanking Catherine and the members of your outreach committee for allowing me to come here today. I'm really enjoying myself, actually. And the lady who had the children here, where are you? Allison. What a great story. I'm trying to figure out how I can use spaghetti now at the food bank. I've got to start out by a couple of stories, both of which are very sad, but they have happy endings. One day, about 3 years ago, a young lady came into the food bank at around 10 to 7. We close at 7. Everybody had their coats on. We were ready to go home. And she came in and says, "Can I get food?" And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, we've just closed and you can come back on Monday." At this point, she burst into tears. Now, ladies, you probably don't appreciate this, but when a strange woman just cries in front of you, I realize I'm completely out of my depth. I fortunately got one of our lady volunteers, Doris, to come over to talk to her. It turned out that she's the mother of 2. She doesn't have a partner. She's looking after her father, who is suffering dementia. And 2 hours prior to coming into the food bank, she lost her job. And she had no food. Now, the happy ending of this is that she came 3 times in the next 3 months, and I haven't seen her since. I know she got a job, and she got back on her feet. One of our volunteers, Greg, went to Shoppers Drug Mart to get his latest COVID booster. I think it's his 9th. And he's in the room there rolling his sleeve up, and the young lady in front of him stands and looks at him, and she says, "I know you." And he says, "I'm sorry, I don't recognize you." And she said, "I've been in Canada now for about a year. I came from Ukraine. And we came to the food bank, and you guys gave us food. I don't know how we would have made it without you." She then got the job at Shoppers Drug Mart. Her father has a job too. She no longer has a need to come to the food bank. So sad but good stories in the end. I'd like to give you a little history of Fair Share. It was started in 1987 by a real estate broker using his back room to give out food. We now have 4 industrial units, about 6,000 square feet. Before the pandemic, we used to feed about 350 families a month. In December last year, we served 871 families. The week before Christmas, we served 324 families. So we now served in that week almost the same number we served in a month prior to the pandemic. The problem of food insecurity in Canada is not going away, it's getting worse. What annoys me about all levels of government, and I don't care what political stripe you are and what level of government, whether it's municipal, provincial, or federal, the politicians are treating food banks as a part of the supply chain. We're not. We're supposed to be, if you get stuck, come to a food bank. But they're saying, hey, food banks are there. If you can't afford food, just go to the food bank. The first food bank was started in 1981 in Edmonton to help the oil workers who were getting laid off because of industry problems in the oil industry. There are now 700 food banks in Canada, and there are over 5,000 churches and community centers that have food cupboards. In March of 24, 2 million Canadians visited a food bank. In Oakville, now think of this in Oakville. Our visits to the food bank have increased by 200% since the pandemic. Now, who are the people coming to the food bank? We have the kind of people that you would expect, who are down and out in their luck. They've lost their jobs. They're incapable of taking care of themselves. We have war refugees coming from Ukraine, Syria, strife in Central and South America, and now Africans are coming. But something that's really disturbed me in the last little while is elderly women. And I'm talking, I'd say elderly, we'll say 60 and above. I know I've insulted somebody. However, I'm 75, by the way. But these ladies generally have lost their husbands or their partners, and they've effectively lost a pension or part of a pension. And now they were just getting by before their partners passed away. Now they can't afford it, and they're coming to a food bank. And I'm seeing, I won't say hundreds, but I'm seeing, it's a large number that I've recognized it and said, there's a problem here. Other people come that have had their hours of work cut from 40 to 20 hours a week, so they can no longer afford to buy food. And believe it or not, we even have a homeless camp in Oakville now. It's out near where the Home Depot is, and you go up there, there's an old graveyard up there, which was the original graveyard, I think, for Oakville. Go down towards 16 Mile Creek, there's a tent city there. There is a need for a food bank. I've been volunteering at Fair Share for 10 years, and I tell my friends, and they're surprised that we have a food bank in Oakville. Oakville is the third largest income per capita in Canada, and yet we have the highest level of poverty in Walton. And the mayor told me that. I'm not making that up. I get asked the question, do the clients, I feel bad about standing right back to you guys. Do our clients need food banks? We used to do a complete means test on our clients. We used to get their income and expenses, and we calculate whether they should come to a food bank. Because of COVID, we could no longer do that. But now what we do is we ask them for their notice of assessment from the CRA. Now, according to our provincial government, if you make $25,000 a year, you are making enough money to live on in this province. Now, I want to tell you what my bill at the liquor store is, and I want to tell you. The story you heard at the beginning where the lady, Catherine, had lost her job, and she's spending $2,000 a month on rent. That's true. Okay, so if you make 25 grand, you pay $24,000 on rent, that leaves you $1,000 a year to live. So what we've done at Fair Share, we've taken that $25,000, we increased it by 20%, and then we rounded it up. So basically, if you're making $40,000 a year or less as a single individual living in Oakville, you qualify for our food bank. Now, we buy a lot of food, and money to the food bank is actually better than giving us food, because I can go and buy more food than you can at the supermarket. Before the pandemic, we used to spend about $300,000 a year on food. In 2024, we're going to spend $1 million. We had over 500 new families registered with the food bank last year, and they all live in Oakville. We only service the people in Oakville. Now, what do we buy with that money? We buy fresh fruit, veg, cheese, eggs, chicken and beef, both regular and halal. 20% of our clients are now Muslims. Frozen veg, flour, oil, diapers, and formula. You have any idea how expensive formula is? Before the pandemic, it was about $30 for a can of formula. It's now $65. I don't know. And when a baby goes through a can of that a week or something. Now, the reason we buy all those products is we can't get fresh stuff. We need to buy that because we need it in certain quantities. And also, we don't get enough of things like flour and oil, and our clients really need that, so we buy that stuff. We buy about 30 different items in all. If you feel like donating food, on our website, we have a needs list. And because our food donations have actually gone down in 24, basically, if it's in a supermarket and it's for sale, yes, buy it for us. I'll take anything you can give us. Now, what do we spend the rest of the money on? Fair share, I'm very proud to say, is 100% volunteers. Nobody gets a salary in our food bank. I calculated, I just did a sort of rough back of a hand calculation. If we had to staff the food bank and pay people to run it for us, it would cost us around $400,000 a year. So all these people who are, to the best of my knowledge, everybody lives in Oakville that volunteers at the food bank. They're doing this for nothing. We have 95 volunteers that come in on a regular basis to help. And when somebody does a really good job, we say we're going to double their pay. So, unlike many other charities, I pay my rent, I pay my utilities, insurance, and everything else goes to buying food. Now, I mentioned earlier about our governments not dealing with food insecurity. Well, they're beginning to realize what a problem it is now. In March 24, there were over 2 million visits to food banks across Canada. Neil Hetherington of the Toronto Food Bank reckons he'll service close to 4 million people in 2024. That's the population of Toronto. So finally, our governments are paying attention. And there are hints that it's becoming an election issue, certainly in the provincial, and I hope federally, because we have to talk about this, and people have to realize. And I'd ask you that if you see any politician, ask them what they're going to do about food insecurity. Now, I'm saying it's a real problem, but there are some real positive stuff that happens at the food bank. The refugees that came in from Ukraine, and we had over 60 families register there. That's what the war started 3 years ago. I doubt if there are 6 left coming to the food bank. Every one of them got a place to live. Every one of them got a job. Their kids are going to school. They are really fitting into the community. I'd say if they stay, they're going to be a great asset to this country. I think that I've told you what we do and how we do it. I really appreciate the opportunity to tell people about it because all of us have a pretty good life, and we don't realize there are 800 families in Oakville that have to come and see me once a month. And we give them for a family of 4, we give them $350 to $375 worth of groceries. And some of them have been coming a long time, but these people really do need it. So thank you very much. Thank you again, Catherine, and your group. I hope I didn't overstay my time. Oh. I don't know who did this, but this is a great idea.